Holy shit, that was a deep dive into madness. That was sort of the movie I didn't know that I wanted, but I needed. Does that make any sense? Okay, if you thought that was the most mentally insane movie of October, well, just go see The Lighthouse. It is intense. Going into this movie, I did not know much about it. I knew the overall premise of it. It's two men that work at a lighthouse in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the ocean. Basically, two dudes stuck together on a rock. It stars Robert Pattinson, aka my future Batman, and Willem Dafoe, the itsy bitsy spider. I love Willem Dafoe. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I drove 2 hours to go see this screening tonight, and it was a really shitty drive. It was rainy, it was gloomy, it was just thunderstorming, and it's still a little bit rainy out right now. Alright, so everything I'm about to say to you is sort of just my first reactions. I just saw the movie 5 minutes ago, and so here it is. This is a film that I can see a lot of film critics over the years having discussions and debates over and analyzing the film, and there's going to be 75 YouTube videos explaining the ending to the movie. But for me, this film's not so much about the destination, it's about the journey, much like The Witch. I was not a huge fan of the ending of The Witch. I thought it was sort of lackluster, and I enjoyed everything except for the ending. And I don't want to exactly say that about The Lighthouse, but I could. I really loved how immersive this film was. The atmosphere of this film is everything I love. It feels isolated and bleak, and it feels true to the time that it takes place in, which is in the late 1800s. And it's sort of a depressing setting, but at the same time, it's a soothing setting to me. I like films where characters are isolated. I've always enjoyed it. Maybe because I enjoy isolation myself, but that's a video for another time. But it's so authentic, this film. It's shot in black and white. Even the aspect ratio is of a film in the early 19th century, and I believe they used 35mm film, which is nice. It's not a digital film. And the other thing is they actually used lenses that they only used on film cameras in the early 19th century, which that's amazing to me. That's the kind of stuff I really love and respect about this film. It's a theater experience that you probably won't ever get again, or you've never had in a theater. Because when you're watching a film like this with the aspect ratio, and now it wouldn't work for something like Avengers Endgame, but for a film like this, where you have two characters giving just great performances, I was making sure the camera's still on, it almost hyper-focuses the attention on the performance of the actor. You don't really so much see the surroundings beside them, you just really get that performance right in the center of the screen. It's sort of like this right here, what's happening right now with this video. You know, it's just none of this shit out here matters. It just right here matters. Okay, they're back there listening to me talk about a sperm whale's pecker. But now let's talk about Willem Dafoe's performance in this movie. He plays this veteran lighthouse keeper, and he sort of he's a seaman. I mean, you know, he has kind of like he speaks like a pirate. Arr, I've sailed the 7 seas and scallywag and swapped a poop deck. He sort of has that thing going on, and he gives these long spiels throughout the film. Honestly, I think after watching this film, the performance given by Joaquin Phoenix in Joker and Willem Dafoe in this film are two of my favorite performances of the year in any film, because they're just so insane. And there's one point in the film, and no spoilers, where Willem Dafoe basically states what the audience is thinking, you know, and I really enjoyed that. I liked how he just called out every theory that an audience member would have to Robert Pattinson's character. I was blown away by it, and it was just so atmospheric and immersive. And it's a movie that, who would have thought, you know, you have a black and white film shot in, you know, like 4:3 aspect ratio, and it could possibly be my favorite theater experience of 2019. I don't know if it's my favorite film, but it's probably my favorite theater experience, and I hope that makes sense. Yeah, I'm searching my brain for other things to say, and I will do a full in-depth review of this film. I could do a couple reviews of this film and still not cover everything. I really enjoyed this movie. That's the most I can say, you know. And you don't have to be a pretentious movie lover, you know, that only watches black and white art house films to enjoy this film. I think if you just give it like 25 minutes to get immersed into it, this movie has something for everyone to enjoy. Maybe not small children, but there's a lot of levity throughout this film. So yeah, was The Lighthouse worth the 2-hour drive? that I originally did not want to make because it was raining? I would say it is. And it's a hell of a lot better than this garbage right here. Okay, I'm in my car now because I think people outside of the theater thought I was utterly insane when I was talking like Willem Dafoe, and I don't blame them. Everybody go see the Lighthouse. Yeah, go see this movie. Go see this film. It's not some pretentious art house film. You know, there's a lot of fun things throughout this film. There's a lot of suspense, and it becomes a little bit crazy and bizarre the second half of the movie. That's when it sort of takes that deep dive into madness, and you get hallucinations and other weird, bizarre things that I wish I could talk about right now, but I can't. But I enjoyed every second of it, even though it gave me little chills down my spine. So yeah, before I go, big thanks to everyone who joined me this week on Patreon, and everyone who's already been a Patreon supporter of mine. I will probably do a deep dive spoiler discussion segment on my Flickbuster podcast, which is exclusively on Patreon, along with some talk about Halloween films that we love and hate, and a ton of other things this week on the podcast, and a special Patreon-only Q&A video, which will be coming this week as well. And if you don't want to do that, make sure you check out the last Flick Trip video here on this channel, where I go to see Rambo and Ad Astra. It's a few weeks old, but nevertheless, it's a fun video. As always, guys, thank you for joining me as I slowly lose my sanity outside of a movie theater, and make sure you subscribe. That way, I can see you next time.